Kerry, thanks very much indeed. It's 8:06. You're listening to Good Morning Ulster, treated in an appalling and dehumanising way and made to feel like a reference number. Those are some of the experiences of victims and witnesses of crime at the hands of the Northern Ireland justice system. A report published this morning points to delays, poor communication and the need for a more streamlined service. Its author is Dr. Michael Maguire from the Criminal Justice Inspection. He joins us now in the studio. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, even that sentence is a pretty damning indictment of your findings. Many of the views of the victims in this report show what could only be described as a breathtaking lack of understanding and sensitivity for their needs from various parts of the justice agencies. What do you think those agencies need to learn from this report?
Well, I think the report does note that there has been much good work that's been done, but the clear message is that there's still a substantial minority that were unhappy with their experience of the criminal justice system. One of the important messages, I think, to come out of it is the need for empathy and understanding in relation to the needs of individual victims and witnesses, because they enter into the justice system through no fault of their own. And it's important that there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach in dealing with individuals. They are individuals, and that reflects the kind of the different needs that they're going to bring to the table.
Can you give us examples of the sort of issues that people raised with you, the concerns that they have?
Well, I think there are a range of issues that the report highlights. The first, as you mentioned, is about communications. People want to know where their case is in the system. They want to have some understanding of when they're going to have to go to court, if they have to go to court, and what the impact on them is going to be. And they don't want to have to ring up several people on a whole range of occasions and to get perhaps different answers. So communication was an important issue. One of the most unforgiving issues with regard to the justice system itself was the length of time it takes for a case to get through the system. It does have an impact on individuals and witnesses, and indeed can deteriorate the nature of justice because people's memories fade after 3 years if you're going to be a witness. So the length of time it takes for a case to get through the system is important as well.
At the same time, there has to be an understanding that this is an extremely complex part of our society. The needs of the police, the needs of prosecutors, the judicial system are tremendous. There's a whole big job there to coordinate the system. So while the individual is important, there has to be a degree of understanding that it isn't going to be a simple process.
You're absolutely right, Mark. I mean, the report does say that putting the victim at the heart of the justice system is very difficult. The role of the police is to prevent crime and to catch criminals. The role of the prosecution service is to represent the state, not the individual. What this says to me, though, is that the justice organisations have to make an extra effort to deal with individuals because it will not come naturally, necessarily, out of the work that they do. And I think one of the important messages for me in the report is that we need to stop thinking about it as a fragmented or fractured criminal justice system and maybe start thinking about it as a criminal justice service, because that deals with the needs of individuals.
So a service rather than a system?
Yes.
What chance do you think the various agencies taking that on board?
Well, we make 6 key recommendations that are designed to change the way in which organisations engage with victims and witnesses. We talk about time limits and statutory case progression. We talk about the establishment of witness care units, which is a one-stop shop, if you like, for individuals that are going to court. It gives them a single point of contact, and it gives them the opportunity to raise questions about where their case is and some of the practical difficulties they're going to have to face in going to court. And we also recommend the establishment of what we've called victims champions within organisations. These need to be people at a senior level that when decisions are taken around the table, that at least there's a perspective on what the impact this is going to have on the needs of victims and witnesses. And this should be a group reporting to the Minister, in my view.
But there would be a cost, presumably, involved in this. If you're going to set up, what is it?
A witness care unit.
Well, exactly. It's another, some people might say, another layer of bureaucracy, of individuals whose job it is to join up the dots, if you like, to produce a much more joined up criminal justice system. Now, that's going to cost money at a time when government's trying to save money, not spend more money.
What we say in this report is that the resources are already there. We have within the prosecution service community liaison teams. We have resources within the police. This isn't about additional resources. This is about the organisations working more closely together to use the resources that they have to deliver a much more targeted service. It's not the panacea for all the ills, but we can do it with the resources that we have, and it will provide, I think, a better service to those who are entering into the justice system.
I mean, you're saying, in essence, that what we have at the moment is too many silos, too many big silos, which are not communicating with each other. So you've got the police in one silo, you've got prosecutors in another silo, you've got the actual judicial process itself in another, and whatever other silos there might be, and they don't have the connections to be able to talk properly to each other.
That's exactly right. I mean, one of the themes of much of our inspection work is the difficulties in organisations joining up and talking together in relation to the work that they do. There have been improvements. But we think looking at the issue of witness care units will be an important example of how organisations can work together to meet the needs of victims and witnesses.
Right, I want to see if we can join two things. If I'm right in thinking that you would like to join two issues that we've already touched on. One is saving money, and the other is speeding up the process. Is it possible that money could be saved within the judicial system if court cases were processed more quickly? Is that possible? Is that something you would like to see happening?
The answer to that question, in my view, is yes. I mean, we've looked at the impact.
Yes, you want it, and yes, it's possible.
Yes, it's possible, and yes, we want it. I mean, we've looked at the impact of the police, for example, attending at court, where there's been an adjournment and they go away again. I mean, we've costed that out in different reports. We've looked at the impact of having two prosecutors in terms of going to court. Now, the issue about time limits, I think, is an important one. It is a complex issue. My view is that we set a date and we work towards the achievement of that date, because that will provide a target and a focus on organisations to meet what is a very difficult, a complex, but a very important area. It takes too long to process people through the justice system, and we need to improve that.
We've had several texts on this. I mean, I just want to put one to you. It's from an individual who says, my wife and I were victims of harassment. We had to take the person to court. The person pleaded guilty after 7 appearances in court. We have a legal bill of over £6,000 while the person was given legal aid. It's just not fair. You can understand why that individual would feel that he has not been served well by the justice system.
It is a very common message in the work that we did when we spoke to victims and witnesses. The length of time that it takes, the fact that the needs of the defendant were seen to be taking a greater priority than the needs of individuals. To some degree, that there is however uncomfortable a message it is, that's an inevitable consequence of the justice system. The role of justice is to process individuals through the courts. The role of the prosecution service, for example, is not to represent the victim, it's to represent the state. That does, however, mean that justice organisations have to make an extra effort. And it's a very common message, unfortunately, that we heard in the report.
Do you have any sense of, you've looked at lots of cases, presumably, all kinds of cases that are going through the system at the moment. Can you give us an example of something which can be slow at the moment, some kind of case which can be slow at the moment, for example, which could be speeded up through the kind of recommendations that you're making, and what kind of difference you think that would have?
Well, I think there are two issues there. I mean, one is in relation to the speed of cases. There are several factors that influence the amount of time it takes a case to progress through the court. There's the availability of forensic information, there's the availability of medical information, there's the extent to which cases are adjourned. There are a high number of cases that are adjourned in Northern Ireland, on many occasions because they're not ready to go to court. And by putting in time limits, by putting in statutory case management, which we're talking about in this report, that would help get cases ready earlier, so that by the time they come to court, they're ready to proceed. So that, for example, to take a particular example, prosecution and defence agree what witnesses are going to be called on the day in court, and then the case can proceed.
Can I just ask you very quickly and finally, you've talked there about all sorts of changes you think you'd like to see happen. You talked about witness care units and victims champions and so on. What kind of timescale do you think is realistic for these recommendations to be implemented, if they are implemented? And I'm going to explain exactly what the Department of Justice's view is on it, but it's a pretty warm response.
Mm-hmm. I haven't been prescriptive in relation to timescale. What I have said is that the organisations themselves need to think about the implementation of these recommendations. They need to think about the timescales associated with them. What I would like to see is a much clearer statement around when we're going to make some of these changes. And I think the importance of oversight in this is very important. I will be coming back in the context of this report to see the extent to which recommendations have been changed. So it's not an issue that's going to go off the table. It will continue to focus the minds of justice organisations, and we're going to have to deal with some of the issues that it addresses.
Okay, well, no doubt you'll be back again telling us in the not-too-distant future how many of the recommendations have been implemented to your satisfaction. Thank you very much indeed for coming in to join us, Dr. Michael Maguire there from the Criminal Justice Inspection Unit. Should just say the Department of Justice says it welcomes this report. The Minister, David Ford, says he will press ahead with the recommendation for witness care units and will write to the heads of the agencies in the criminal justice system to ask them to nominate a senior officer to act as their victims' champion. That's two of the issues we've been discussing. He says he's already commissioned work on the development of a new strategy for victims and witnesses of crime, and today's report will help to inform that strategy.